Hi, it's Wendy Hernandez with Command the Courtroom. In this week's video, I want to talk with you about what might happen if you don't show up for a court date. So first off, this should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's never a good idea not to show up for a hearing, especially if you have an interest in what the outcome might be. Now, if you don't have an interest in what the outcome might be, meaning you don't care one way or the other, it's still not necessarily a good idea not to show up. A lot is going to depend on the type of hearing that you're not showing up for. So in some cases, if you don't show up for a hearing, what the court could do is enter what's called a default judgment against you. What that means is that the court could give the other party all of the relief that they're asking for. So if the other side is asking for sole custody or sole decision making, and they're asking to have the majority of the parenting time, and they're asking for some outrageous amount of child support, it is possible that that person could get those things, especially if you don't show up and give the court your 2 cents and defend whatever it is that you want. So that's one scenario. Another scenario could be is that the court could make orders against you that really prejudice you, that are not based in fact, that are based on things that the other party made up, and as a result it could affect your life down the road. In a while back, I represented a man, and he was going through divorce proceedings, and at some point he and I parted ways, and he went on to represent himself. And what he ended up doing was not showing up for some very important court hearings. And the court entered orders against him for ridiculous amounts of spousal maintenance on a monthly basis. We're talking like $6,000 a month in spousal maintenance. And my former client continued not to show up for court hearings. He continued to ignore the court's orders. And before everyone knew it, he had amassed arrears in the amount of $45,000. And he continued to ignore the court's orders. What the judge then did was issue a civil arrest warrant for the arrest of my former client, and he was actually arrested. And this person, he's a good person. He was a good father. He had a great job. He was very intelligent, and I'm not really sure what happened, why he made the decision not to show up, but he was actually put in jail for accumulating this huge amount of arrears, and the court set a really high purge amount before he was able to get out of jail. So what that means is he had to pay tens of thousands of dollars before the judge would release him. So somehow he was able to get the money and he got out of jail, but that was a really hard lesson for him to learn. First off, because this outrageous amount of spousal maintenance was ordered against him, and then secondly, because he buried his head in the sand and ignored that court order, that he went to jail. And it's really difficult once a court enters orders. If you have waived your appearance, if you haven't shown up for court, it's difficult, unless you have a good excuse, to get the judge to change those orders or set aside those orders. And I've seen people who put their head into the sand and ignored the court's orders, and then they suffered some terrible consequence, and they decided, okay, I'm going to do something about this, and I want the judge to change whatever it is that they previously ordered. But at that point, it's too late, because they had their opportunity to be heard. They had their opportunity to have their say, and they just didn't take it. So on one end of the spectrum is the court could enter a default judgment against you, giving the other party everything that they're asking for. And at the other end of the spectrum is the court could go so far as to issue arrest warrants for you, incarcerate you, and I'm sure that there's other numerous ways that the court could punish somebody who didn't show up for court and there was a court order to show up. So I really want you to think carefully before you make a decision just not to show up in your case. If you have made the decision in your case that it's okay for the other person to have what they want or to get what they want, think about maybe entering into an agreement with that other person or a stipulation. But my advice to you would be not to just not show up, do something to let the court know and let the other party know that you're in agreement with with what the other party's asking for. And if you're not in agreement, then by all means do everything you can to defend your position. So that's going to do it for this week's video. I hope it helped. As I always say every week, if you haven't already gone to Facebook to Command the Courtroom and liked us, do it now. Every week I post the videos. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel, because every week I post the video on YouTube, and if you subscribe, you'll get notified. Feel free to leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down. If you have questions, post them, and maybe I will feature your question in a future video. But until next week, keep on trucking, and remember to command the courtroom.